Live at 5, Michaela Hurley and Tom Cummings back with Inside Norwood. Thank you for watching. My guest this afternoon, Selectman David Ajar, along with our great town manager, Tony Mazzucco. And these two guys put a lot of time into this town, a lot of things going on. And we're going to hopefully tell you a little bit about it. Our sponsor, J.C. Jacobs Plumbing and Heating, 1156 Washington Street, 781-762-8381. Joe, thank you very much for helping out, and we really appreciate it. You've been doing it for a long time. A lot going on in our town, but before we get to our agenda and guests, just a moment for one of our great long-time town employees, who we recently lost, Assistant Town Manager, Mr. Bernie Cooper. Just to chat with him was my utmost pleasure. If you needed something or you just had a question, he was right there for you. Our condolences go out to his family. Bernie, I personally am going to miss you, okay? Because I used to see you every so often, and we used to have a nice little chat, even though you had about 5 other things going in your mind at that time. Now let's turn to our guest, David Bernie Cooper. Great guy.
He is sorely missed and will be for quite some time. There are things that he did for this town that people aren't aware of, or he would just automatically do because for him it was all about the town of Norwood. So I don't think there are words enough for the appreciation that should be given to him, his memory, his family. He is truly missed. He's a great guy, a great townie, and he was never one to be in the limelight, but he was always in the background helping whomever he could for whatever reason. So it's a huge loss for us, and it'll take us a while to get through it. I know we will, but he was a wealth of treasure.
Yeah. Tony worked directly for you, your assistant, and you know.
We're gonna miss him. You know, Bernie was the quintessential public servant. He was smart, he was hardworking, he was humble, incredible family man, and not just loved Norwood. I mean, he loved this community, but he loved community and the sense of community and what makes living in a place great and worth it. And Bernie loved all of that. And he was a good friend, and we're gonna miss him.
Yeah, he worked long hours just like you do. Oh yeah.
6 days a week.
Hey, you want the job? You're gonna have to do it, and
Wait,
that's the way
I
it
have
is.
to mark that down. He's taking a day off once a week.
Yeah. Tony, I wanted to just ask you, because I've been bugging David about it, and Norwood Hospital, it's a tough situation we're in. It really is.
It is. You know, the loss of the hospital is causing a stress to our fire and EMS and police systems. We're having to travel to Needham, to Attleboro, to Brockton, and into Boston. It's costing us money in overtime. It's costing us money in fuel. It's costing us in wear and tear on the vehicles. And worst of all, it's taking folks longer to get to a hospital. And that's being felt all over the region. We actually had a call today with the CEO of the hospital and most of the other town managers in the region, and the other towns are feeling it as well. And even some of the smaller towns a little bit further out, not that Needham's a smaller town, but some of the smaller ERs that have begun to fill up as a result, they're feeling overwhelmed because they weren't designed to handle this kind of volume. So it's, and again, worst of all being the impact it's having on people in the community with you have to travel further. We no longer have the cath lab, and that's the number one thing you want if somebody's having a heart attack is that cath lab at the hospital. So we talk to Stewart every week, and they're working through a complicated insurance process. I mean, fully rebuilding the hospital is probably $250 million. So understandably, they're still waiting to go through, they're waiting sort of on final approval or a final number from their insurance agency. Our fire department's been very involved in that process. The inspectors have been very involved in that process. And of course, you have the hospital and you have the insurance company. Each side has their own adjusters and their own experts, and they're constantly having to go into the building and look and adjust. Understandably, that if the example I give everyone as to why it's taking so long, at least why I assume it's taking so long, imagine if we lost the high school. Imagine if we had lost the high school and we had to file an insurance claim for a new high school. A new high school in Massachusetts today is $250 million. I don't think our insurance company would just say, oh, all right, high school's gone, here's your check for $200 million. I'd fight like hell to get them to do it,
Yeah.
but I think it would take some time to work through it. Stewart has said publicly again and again that they are committed to staying in Norwood and operating in Norwood. Are we all concerned that the longer it goes without some action? Absolutely. What they've recently told us is they're hoping to make a big announcement by April or May, and hopefully that's a big positive announcement, of course. And even then, we're looking at a while before the hospital comes back. I know early on we were so excited it was going to look at it's only 30 days, it's only 60 days, it's only 90 days. And then like an onion, every layer they peeled back, they found more and more damage to the hospital. They really, I was explaining this to some of my colleagues around the state today, they really got screwed in two different ways. One was because all of their electrical and their mechanical, if you remember, where we all saw those devastating videos of the water really rushing in, that was all below grade. So all of that was taken out with the flood. And then the courtyard actually filled up with water in the inside as well, and that spread gray water, which is surface water, into almost every other aspect of the hospital. You can't open a hospital if there's any mold. So they've done their water mapping, and there is mold in the building. You have to replace that electrical. You have to replace those floors, that drywall. I mean, it's so much work because a hospital is built to such a different standard than your home or my home. If you get some mold in your basement, or I get some in my basement, David has some around his toilet, the sink or whatever, you clean it up with some bleach and you dry it, and you're good to go. Everyone knows that your basement, God forbid you have water in your basement. We had a lot in the June 28th storm. You cut the drywall up to 2 or 3 feet, and then you replace it, and you're able to go on. And 99 out of 100 times, if not 100 out of 100 times, that's fine. A hospital has to be built to a much different sterile standard than your home or my home or than a retail space. So it's incredibly frustrating. We keep sort of telling everyone the update this week is that there's no further update other than Stewart keeps telling us that they're working on their getting their insurance process completed, and at least every week the fire department inspectors or the building inspectors are getting information to Stewart, getting information to the insurance company, letting them know the condition and the quality that the hospital needs to be brought back to, because we also don't want, on the one hand, we want a hospital back up and running as soon as we can. We also want the best hospital we can get out of the process. So we don't want to just cut any corners on our end and say, okay, just patch it back up and put it back together and we get a hospital back, because that's going to be unsafe for people too. So we're stuck between a rock and a hard place, but we're going to keep working it.
Couldn't they start? We're going to tear it down. They're going to tear it down. Couldn't they start? Pronto and tearing it down?
So my understanding is they've already spent about $500,000 in engineering and design work and investigative work, and then they've spent additional money on the building. You have to complete that insurance process, because what an insurance company will do with such a large, complex commercial claim is they've got to go in and say, all right, this studio is an example here. This isn't just a room. So the square footage value of this room might be, $200 a square footage, but there's a lot of expensive equipment in here. The cameras, the head end equipment, the transmission equipment. So you need to go in, and all that needs to be documented, and all that needs to be verified, and a value needs to be assigned to all of that. And then you need to determine, is it a depreciated value or not, because all of this equipment has value here, but if we lost the high school in a flood, God forbid, what will we do with this equipment? Could you pick some of it up and move it? Could you not pick some up and move it? And then you fight out that process of, well, wait a minute, there's $5 million worth of equipment here, but depreciated it's worth $3 million of equipment. And you know what? $1 million can be moved. But just because you can move it doesn't mean there's necessarily a buyer and you can pick it up and move it somewhere. So they wouldn't be able to start tearing it down yet, because they're still needing to go through that process and think of all the complicated equipment and systems in a hospital. Remember, it's not just a building, it's not just a commercial building. All of the gas systems and the air systems and everything else that go into making a hospital and a hospital room work is complicated. I do know that while they wouldn't be tearing it down yet, us passing the zoning at town meeting, and I know we'll talk about that a little bit later, that was helpful to Stewart officials because it's one less roadblock in the way, so they know that once they get the okay to go forward, they can move forward with that planning piece without having to wait for that additional roadblock.
David?
Yeah, I was going to say, furtherance to Tony's response about the building itself and tearing it down, it's not unusual when you have a high value loss for the insurance company and the owners of the building to walk back in certain aspects of the building because they may dispute certain values of certain parts of the building. So they're not going to rush in, tear it down, and destroy whatever, quote, evidence that they may have been able to persuade the insurance company that it was worth a higher value or there was more equipment than what is being documented. So I definitely can understand why they're waiting to demolition. It hurts more because it's in our backyard. But there are 23 total towns involved that are suffering through the specific issues that Tony raised earlier: higher toll on stress levels on the individuals, the cost of vehicles, the wear and tear, the mileage, etc., overtime, in coverage for each other's town. If you're using two ambulances and they're both out, what do you do? Because they're on runs, someone has to cover, where before for us it was easier. It's a half a mile, you drop the patient off, and then you go back to the firehouse and then you're ready to go again. It's not that easy anymore. So I think everyone knows that we want, and Stuart has made it perfectly clear that they want a new hospital. It's just going to take time. There's no short-term answer that's going to satisfy everyone's wish we could snap their finger like Bewitched and say, here you go. Here's your new 6-story, 8-story, whatever story hospital that they want to build under zoning. It's just going to take some time.
Okay. Tony, could you kind of focus in maybe a little bit on when you think it will start? Guess. I'm sure it's a guess. And how long it's going to take them?
So if I had to guess, we're probably looking at 2 to 3 years.
To finish it?
To the finish, to the end result.
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry,
not
not
bad.
to say when it's going to start. I mean, if Stewart's able to make an announcement that they've reached an agreement with the insurance company, or maybe they reached an agreement that they're not going to agree with the insurance company, they've got to move forward one way or another, that will come in, let's say that comes in April or May, they're still going to have to tear down the building, go through design, a fairly simplified permitting process with the town, and construct a new building. Those processes probably take 2 to 2.5 years. So big picture, before we have a return to the hospital as we know it, I think we're probably looking at 2.5 to 3 years.
Okay.
Now, construction can go quickly sometimes. Permitting can go quickly. The permitting won't be much of a problem with the new zoning. It'll go fairly quickly. They'll go to the planning board for site plan review, make some adjustments, and go from there. And I know they're working on some of that in the background to just be ready for it. Remember, there's 2 reasons why I'm confident and hopeful, of course, that Stewart's going to stick around. One is they lose money every day the hospital is not open.
Of course.
So they're losing an enormous amount of money. They're a private entity, and some people say, "Oh, well, they're a private entity." Well, what that means is that any entity needs to make money to operate. They also pay about $1 million a year in taxes, plus the water, sewer, and the electric. The way the hospital systems work is you're often a feeder into your other hospitals. So you're running an ER in Norwood, and the ER sort of supports your other hospital services, and then your hospital supports the other hospitals in your network. So as you lose a hospital like Norwood, it's not like let's say a fast food restaurant where if I own 5 fast food restaurants, I can say, well, I'm going to sell my fast food restaurant in Scituate because it's not making much money, and it doesn't have any impact on my restaurant in Norwood. Well, when you lose one hospital in a network, the whole feeder system sort of goes down, and it starts to impact the company's financials as all. Now, Stewart's a large company with many hospitals, but they have other hospitals in the area that are impacted by the loss of Norwood. Okay. So we're probably in this for the long haul. What we consistently have heard is when they come back, when the hospital comes back, it should be bigger and better than it was before. Nice. And that's what we're also pushing.
Nice. Yeah. This one thought I had in the last week or so when I knew you were coming on is, would they consider building the emergency section first and open it pronto,
first,
as quick as possible?
So we'd like to see that, because the minute that ER opens up, I'm going to sleep better at night. And not that the whole world's about me sleeping better at night, but let me tell you.
How do you think I feel? You know? What do you think,
30,000 of us will sleep better at night. Actually, probably 250,000 us that are in the hospital's catchment area. I think the challenge would be for the ER to be effective, you also need bed space in the hospital. And you'll have to have your civil engineer sit there and figure out, okay, how do we actually build the building to get the whole thing up and running first? I would like to see them take an ER first approach, but the design of that may not work because the ER is going to sort of be part of the whole building. Now, what you might see is the ER and the core hospital opens up, and then some of your other services open from there. You know, things like maternity might come after the core hospital is open, not as part of a 5 or 7 year plan, but as soon as that ER is open and they've got some beds in there and an OR, that's what you want to get up and running first. And then if you have your maternity lab, they've talked about doing a big ortho lab for orthopedics. Those would be things that would come later in the construction process, but still part of one facility construction.
Good.
You'll be able to tell from the design that they present how they're going to go about building it.
Yeah,
And
okay.
if they can have the ER up and running as
All
part.
right, David, how about recent town meeting?
Well,
You
recent
wanna
town
tell us
meeting
about
was 3 days. It was all virtual. I think it was Norwood's first time doing it all virtual. Last spring we did it. It was in person. So it was at the request of most town meeting members that we do a virtual meeting, and we did. So it took us 3 days. I think at the end, I don't think it would have been that much shorter if it had been done in person. I think the issues that were talked about were less technology related and really more substance related, so which was a good thing. We did 25 articles in 2 nights and really a third of a night. The third night was pretty quick, so I know we're going to get into some of the zoning issues and whatever, but overall, my most pleased part about it, there was at least 6 articles related to tax relief for seniors and veterans to bring us sort of up to speed to where most of or some of the communities around us are. I think we would fall below. So I think that's good for our seniors, whether it's a senior tax write-off, a veterans tax write-off, work off some of their taxes up to a certain dollar value. Some eligibility for other veteran and senior tax abatement possibilities was reached. So I'm really proud that the town overall stepped forward and said, yes, let's do this. So that was
Will
great.
we continue to do it this way, or will we go back to the old way at some point?
Well, that will depend on the governor's determination of is what we are in over. And then I think most people would like to go back in person. It's much more of a...
Really?
Yeah, I think more people like to get together, talk, and chat, and you can't do that. I mean, I'm on Zoom, and there's nobody around me. I'm at my house. I can't lean over and talk to a fellow town meeting member if they didn't fully understand something, and you don't want to raise your hand every single time. And I think there's some camaraderie about talking beforehand or talking after the fact. I definitely think people would definitely want to go back to in-person meetings as long as it can be done safely and basically the emergency's over.
And you don't have to make a comment on this, but I will. One of the reasons why, and I was there, 37, 38 years, is because people, town meeting members, speak too long. And, you got to get your point across. And I think if that is cut back dramatically, I think it'd be more interesting. It gives more people a chance to talk, and that's how I feel about it. You guys, any comment on, you're welcome to do it. But when I was there, that's one of the reasons why I just got frustrated, because on, and half the town meeting don't know what the hell a person's talking about. I mean, and that's frustrating. I think that has to be controlled. Okay, Tony. One of my pet peeves, and I'm sure it's yours too, and David's, is street paving, and and underground work. Let's talk about the street paving, and then I do have a particular street that I like a little bit, and maybe I'll ask you about that. But what's going on with street paving?
Well, Tom, tell me, what street do you live on?
Never mind. I said Redwood Drive, the famous Redwood Drive. Ask Helen Donahue. She always comments on
Redwood
it.
Drive. Let me see here. Redwood Drive. Redwood. Sorry, you're not on the list for this year,
Yeah,
Tom.
you and Mark didn't go down there. No, what? Not this year, but next year, right?
Maybe. I don't know about next year. So we'll be starting in the spring with about $2.5 million worth of paving work.
Nice.
Some of the streets, and again, this is always subject to final approval by the board, and we got to get through the rest of the winter, but we're looking at parts of Brook and Prospect Street, Brookfield Road, Emerson, Longfellow, Garden Parkway, Layton, Mayfair Street and Circle, River Ridge, Belknap, Morningside, a portion of Nichols, and a number of other streets, parts of Richland, Ridgewood, Tamworth, Windsor. So number of streets getting done, and then roads and new sidewalks for Douglas Ave, Press Ave, parts of Railroad, parts of Cedar and Lenox, parts of Monroe, and parts of Washington. So this is the biggest road investment we've made in a long time. Over the summer, our summer paving projects, we did about $1.5 million worth of work, and this spring we'll be doing $2.5 million, give or take, of road paving. So we're excited. We're looking forward to it. You're going to see a lot of roads get done, a lot of new sidewalks getting done. And in terms of water main cleaning and lighting, we did about 1,800 feet of water main lines last year. We're looking at doing almost 10 times that amount. So we've got a big water lining project, and it's hopefully the first in a number of projects that are going on. And the streets where we're targeting the water lining, not only does it need to get done, but those streets just had natural gas done within the last couple of years. They've had National Grid go in and do some work. Then we're going to do over the course of the next year the water. And then some of these roads, and I just don't know if Redmond's still not on there, so I don't know, but some of these roads are going to get followed up the following year with paving as well.
Okay, now what do you do when you say underwater? What do you actually do? What do you do?
When you line it, so what we actually do is you'll dig out a pipe, and then you'll put a new lining in a water pipe, and it's a precast lining that'll actually extend the life of the pipe by about 50 years. It basically takes, let's say, an old cast iron pipe or a metal pipe, and it lines it with a new lining. It also cleans it in the process, so you're also cleaning out everything that's in the pipe and relining it, giving it about a 50-year lifespan.
Is that the reason why somebody's water blocks up and then they have to dig up the street? That's the reason for that?
Absolutely. So there's a lot of things that can happen to your water line, and there's two parts. There's the town's water line, and then there's your line to your house. Roots get in there, number one, and then once they get in there, they start growing. And a little bit of root infiltration is not a big thing, but it grows and it grows and it grows. You can get fat and other solid buildup. And then you just get mineral material buildup. And a pipe that might be this wide, once it's had a lot of buildup over years, can drop to this.
Okay.
So it doesn't affect the quality of the water in terms of its drinkability. It also goes through a filtration system, but that dramatically reduces your water flow. So that's what really impacts your water pressure to your house, is the condition of the pipe. If that pipe is leaking in the street, and you really can't tell, I mean, you could lose hundreds of thousands of gallons a year, but we pay for every gallon we buy from the MWRA. So the more we can reduce leakage in the system, the more we can reduce our overall costs from the MWRA, because we're losing less water from those pipes being cracked and that water just going in there.
Okay, so people who think of buying insurance, okay, insurance, very small amount, they tell you, hey, we'll take care of your water and all that. This would correct it. In that situation.
This solves, that's for your line from your house to the street, usually when you buy that little extra insurance. What this is likely to do is it increases fire flows, it increases water pressure, it increases the cleanliness of the water, reduces loss of water, and reduces the likelihood that you're going to face a water break. Once you've relined those pipes and they're in good condition, you're looking at generally minimum of 10, if not 20 or 30 years before you could have a break. Now, things can always happen, but as the pipes get older, you run the risk of a break, and then that gets fixed, and then it breaks somewhere else down the line, and then that gets fixed, and then it breaks somewhere else down the line, and then you're facing water interruption the whole time. And your bill may not be paying it if your water's running, but the town bill is still paying for it, because we're still getting billed from the MWRA, and that factors into everyone's rates anyway.
So if this is a house right here,
Yep.
and the lines are coming out like that, you would replace these lines.
No, it's not the line from the house to the street. It's the line
How
in the
about
street.
the lines from the house to the street?
That's always the property owner's responsibility.
Okay. All right. Cool. But
That's also a much smaller line. Those lines are less subject to breaking. It can happen.
Yeah.
There can be root infiltration, but that's usually a pipe like this versus what's out on the street can be 14 inches.
From the property line outwards, that's where you guys would take care of it. Okay, that's interesting. David?
I think this is this is a major step for our town. I think, once again, it's trying to take the longer view of what we want to accomplish. And this is one of those programs that you say, we need to find a way to get this done. We have to get this done. We can't keep pushing things on the back burners and saying, leave it to the next group to do it. So I think with Tony's support, the selectmen have said we want to make this a priority. So the roadway money is $2.6 million, I think, for 5 years. So it'll have to be reauthorized every year for 5 years. But the intent is that we want to get to the point where we are equal to what we have to spend every year just through normal chapter, chapter 70, right? 70 funds that the town gets to keep up with it, rather than having to I mean, we had an override for $600,000, and then we have this $2.6 million. So it's a lot of money. It's a big commitment. I think it's great. It's the same with the water and sewer. It's more than 5 years, but the issue with that is this is going to solve a lot of long-term issues for the town and reduce expenses going forward.
Okay, Tony, I don't want to mean to belate the water, but Tom Cummings' house, and here it is, and you guys are right over here. You're going to replace this right over the street.
Yes.
Would you inform the owner, hey, you better do something? Is that
Yeah,
part
so
of it?
it's always part of the DPW's process. They'll send letters to everyone in the affected neighborhoods. They'll let them know exactly what we're doing, what they need to do. When you see those metal pipes running across the side of a street and across somebody's driveway, that's when we're replacing a water service. So you get put on a temporary water service while we do it, and then we replace the water service, and you end up with better pressure, better quality water, and a better water system that leaks less overall. And
That's great.
it is. It's important. You know, it comes at a cost. It comes out of water and sewer rates, so you're always going to see sort of an upward pressure on those rates. Excuse me.
Excuse me. Watch it.
Thank you. As a result of this, but if you leave your infrastructure and you don't fix it, you'll get to a point where you're so far behind and you will never be able to catch up. And there are some communities that are out there that will never catch up. So it's, you know, these costs, I mean, these bonds are expensive. It's $4.5 million worth of water work this year, but it gets spread out over 25 or 30 years. So the whole generation of users are going to pay for it. But the benefit to that is we'll never let our infrastructure fall behind. We can't let it fall behind.
Great.
You love to get ahead, but at best you at least got to keep pace, because once you fall behind, you can never do it all at once.
And I think you're in the same situation with the streets. Street
Absolutely.
paving. It's going to help Public Works tremendously.
Yep.
And my favorite street, favorite street's going to get paved.
Yeah,
down there,
sure
the
will.
asphalt
Yeah,
pit, right?
yeah, okay.
Well,
Tell me about it. The best line is I think Tony and Mark Ryan projected that if we didn't change how we were going to do the water and sewer relining, that it would take us how many years?
Oh, it was over 30 years to line the whole system. So
30
you'd start
years.
seeing complete failures at that point.
Wow.
So you'd be replacing them anyway. It just
30 years just to get us where we really should be. But by the time that 30 years, you might have to go back to things that we started from the beginning, because they've been doing relining for years and years now. So this is one of those things that you take a long-term view and say, we have to bite the bullet over the next 8 years in this matter. And obviously we'll take a look at each year because it's a water and sewer rate increase. But the best thing we can do is get it started.
I think people want it. I think the residents. I want it. I want it done. I think it should be done. You know,
it's a good
it's an easy justification, but it's a hard sell, because it's not something that people can visibly see and say, I can feel it, I can touch it, oh, I can see it. It's all underground work, but it makes our community stronger.
Yeah, and we're going to bring you a lot of that information throughout the course of the project, where we're going to have a lot of stuff on NCM and a lot of stuff on social media and the town's webpage, showing people what it looks like. I mean, I always show 2 images of what a lined versus an unlined pipe works like, so people can actually see this is where your water goes. And, you know, it's always good for your home values. It's always good for the streets. I mean, when you have a lot of pipe breaks, what ends up happening is it causes weaknesses in the roads, it causes other issues. So the more you go and fix it, the better we can save and conserve water, which is a precious resource.
Right. I just want to take a second out to thank Brian Boudreau for his great help up here this evening. He's very efficient, and Brian Dunn was very helpful in setting this program up. So I just want to thank both of them. David, I'm going to stick with you, and let's see. You know, we're going. We haven't covered many topics before. We don't have much time left. I want to get into the vaccinations. Okay, you know, people. I speak to people, and I'm trying to help these people and back me. Fellows in his 80s and trying to get in his daughter. His daughter says, Tom, I don't know what to do. What do I do? And it's broken English situation and all that, so it's difficult for me. But could you tell us a little bit of what's happening with the vaccinations?
Well, there's been a change, unfortunately. It's more state-controlled now. So the state has definitely opened up a lot more centers where they can provide the vaccinations. And that's what they want people to do. So it's being taken away from local towns, and it's going to be administered strictly through the state.
Well, should have been done in the first place.
No, well,
Maybe.
maybe not. I like to think that the locals can have a better control of what's happening locally than the state can have trying to look at 351 cities and towns across the state. But this is the path, and this is the change they have made. So we'll see their procedures that are coming out, dribs and drabs, and who is able to get it. I know they're coming out with, if you have just one of these type of scenarios and you're 65, you're into the next phase and all the rest. So it's hard to swallow from our end, because I think we thought that our health department had a great control over who was getting it, how they were getting it, where they were getting it, and pleasing our locals, but that's not going to happen.
Okay, so they're not going to get involved, because I got mine at the Veterans Administration,
Right.
you know, and Tony, okay there?
Yeah, no, Tony
you think
probably
that
has more
maybe
detail.
you could put something, or you put different things over the network every so often, and just reach out to maybe 75 and older, and say, you know, because I talk to people, and Tom, I got my next door neighbor, Joanne Brady, who's watching the show, I'm sure, right now. I called her up a week and a half ago, and I said, Joanne, did you get your shot yet? And she's about 83, 84, and she says, no, Tommy, how do I do it? And I told her. The other day, she got her first shot. And I think maybe a message from you, you know, or somehow or other, you could say it right now, Tony, and maybe
So
you want to send a message out there right now over the network.
We've been putting that information out there on NCM and through the Senior Center from the beginning. If she went to Gillette, that's where the state's directing people. I fault the governor for really creating an awful process for people, in particular for seniors.
Confusing.
Confusing, and the state not being ready. I mean, it's like they asked an intern to go ahead and set up their release program. And now they've taken away the ability of us to vaccinate locally after March 1st, which means we won't be able to do a clinic at the Norwood Town Hall. If you got your first shot here, we can do your second one, but we won't be able to do any first shots after March 1st. We have a lot of elderly in this community who don't want to go to Gillette. We have a lot of frail elderly. We have people with mobility issues, people with transportation issues, and the state's response is find a way to Gillette. It's not a fair or equitable system. I think the state has screwed it up royally.
I knew that was going to happen. I knew it.
They have. I mean, they've continued to change the categories. So I'm glad that older seniors are getting the vaccine, but we have not taken care of our public works employees. We have not taken care of janitors. We haven't taken care of grocery store workers, people who are serving these people. So I may have to send unvaccinated employees into somebody's house because they're not taking care of the critical workers who have had to work every single day since this started. You take that combined with their not doing teachers yet, so forget about kids going back to school regularly this year. That's now not, I can almost guarantee that's not going to happen unless something dramatically changes with the way the state's doing it. And then a confusing system for seniors. And now after March 1st, if you're a senior in Norwood and you haven't gotten your shot yet, you can't get it in your own town. So good luck getting a ride to Fenway or to Gillette to do it. The state's completely screwed it up.
And when you try, when you want to go to Gillette or Fenway or wherever they direct you, they're telling you you have to schedule yourself, and you go on. There were no appointments available at Gillette.
It's incredibly confusing.
Last night my wife was on for her mother, and absolutely no appointments available. She went day after day after day, said nope, nothing available, nothing available, nothing available.
Well, let me just add to that, Tony. Okay, a little over a month ago, I received an email from the Veterans Administration with a form on it, a form. Fill out my name, fill out all the information, okay? And then down the bottom it says, do you, yes or no, want to get your vaccine shot? So I sent it right back. I think 2 nights later, I got a call about 8:30 from a young lady from the Veterans Administration. She says, Mr. Cummings, do you want to get your shot? I says, yeah, what did you just say to me? I said, now this is over a month ago. She says, do you want to get your shot? I says, are you kidding? Thank you, and God bless. Really. Let's see. 3 days later or so, I was over to VA to get my first shot. That's how you work it, okay? Yeah. You know, and I try to tell all the veterans I know, hey, you know, they're going to be calling you, you know? So that's what actually happened. We have about 5 minutes, guys. You guys, something particularly you want to... Look at the first page. We didn't even get by the first page. Wow, we got some good information out there. Anything...
well, I just want to spend 30 seconds...
Go ahead, David, go ahead.
Spend 30 seconds on zoning issues that came up, because I know people seem to be frustrated with Article 12 and subsequently Article 13, which was affected by the denial or the pushback on Article 12 is... people need to stay involved if they want to participate in the zoning update. This is regarding all of Route 1. It's 8 miles. It's 4 miles on each side. It's probably the biggest zoning change in the town of Norwood since I can ever remember. And it's some greatly needed updates and consolidates the 4 different zones that we have on Route 1 to one type. And it really details some really great thoughts about signage and how we're encouraging businesses to cooperate, et cetera, et cetera. So there was a lot of pushback from town meeting members that they didn't think that the process was entirely great as far as notifications, the ability for town meetings to participate. So I don't think we want to get into the blame game because I think we want to stay positive about the rezoning. It's a great idea. And when the zoning board puts out either general information meetings or public hearing notices going forward, people should attend. It'll be virtually, we know, probably, but they should attend, give their responses and feedback, and let's put together an updated one that will pass muster and people will feel part of the process.
Okay.
So thanks.
We have a few minutes, but I just want to tell you a very short part of time. But we only got through the first page, so I think we should come back. I really do.
I think we should too.
ASAP and get the information out there. You know, Michaela says I have 5 minutes, so I just want to just mention. You guys just take a little shot at it. We have a lot of empty stores still, and you know, I can make a suggestion that we ought to. You know, see that nice shoe there? You know, I didn't get that in Norwood, but anyways, you guys ought to think about putting a shoe store there. We don't really we have the sneaker store and all that, but you don't have a shoe store. And, you know, that's one thing. Of course, the beer hall, which I've been pushing now, Tony doesn't know about that because he wasn't here when I started pushing the beer hall.
Tom, that's what I love about you. You're a great communist. You just think the government should run shoe stores, and you know, we got a police department, a public works department. I'll open up the shoe department store if you want.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, those outdoor restaurants that was a big help to the town of Norwood. And you know, I got these people over Boston Tavern, which I've been there, and my son's been in here twice now. He's coming back in again, and we were over there. I'm telling you, it is just great. It is. And I was at Supercuts today down in Route 1. And I asked the owner, I says, how your store's doing? And one up in Lennox Street is the other one. And she says, Tom, we are really starting to pick up. The meat counter at Stop and Shop, I asked the young lady, the manager, Tom, things are starting to turn. They really are. So we got to feel good about that, you know.
We do, you know.
It's a great time to, you know. But
I
stores.
We need to have a discussion at a future meeting about outdoor dining for 2021. That is going to build on the great success of
So you're going to continue that?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
That's great news, isn't it?
No.
Oh, yeah.
We've already mentioned it. We've had a public meeting that we invited all the restaurants to give us feedback, and Tony talked about the successes of 2020 and asked for input about what could be done to make 2021 even better, and they gave a couple of good suggestions that we're going to take and put into place that will help. Yeah, so, but there needs to be further discussion on it so people are made aware of it.
You know, it's funny. I called up Mark Ryan one day just to chat with him about a couple of things, and he interrupted me before I even could talk. He said, you know, Tom Cummings, you finally got your way. You got the outdoor restaurants going, you know, and you guys helped them so much. I mean, they're so appreciative, you know. Hey, these are our businesses. We got to take care of them, you know.
Well, absolutely.
To Tony's credit, we authorized that it be done, and sort of Tony and his staff outlined the process and worked very diligently with all the restaurant owners to make it happen quickly. And that was what needed to be done last year, is get it out there quickly and have the ability for restaurant owners to get some revenue by allowing outside dining. So kudos to Tony and his entire staff, and it's going to make this year's implementation much easier because he sort of set the framework and make a couple of changes.
You got a plan. You put a plan in place. You know what you're doing. Tony, next time you can make your general comment, and we'll go from there. Okay.
Sounds good.
I hope you liked our show. Michaela and I want to thank you for watching. Our sponsor, J.C. Jacobs Plumbing and Heating. By the way, Joan and Joe got their first shot today, which is a good thing. Our guest, Selectman David Ajar, and our great town manager, Tony Mazzucco. Coming right up at 6, Tom Cummings Show with Selectman Tom Maloney, Finance Commissioner Alan Slater, and Selectman David Hajar. Thanks for tuning in. Hang with us a little bit. Go have your drink, your potato chips, and we'll be right back. Thank you.